He walked into church blind and broken, begging God for a wife. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, and their lives changed forever. But what happened after their wedding will leave you speechless. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The reception had ended, but the feeling of the wedding still lingered in the air like a warm embrace. Outside the church, the night was calm. The stars shined gently above as Elijah and Ava stood at the front steps, their hands still held tightly together. Family and friends had hugged them, taken photos, and offered prayers. Now it was just the two of them. A sleek black car waited nearby, Elijah's driver, Marcus, standing respectfully by the door. Ava glanced at her husband. Her husband. It still felt like a dream. Elijah, dressed in his black tuxedo, turned his face slightly toward her. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice calm, steady. She nodded. More than ever. Marcus opened the door. Ava got in first, then Elijah followed, guided gently by her voice and the sound of her soft movements. Inside the car, silence fell. Not the awkward kind, the peaceful kind. Elijah leaned back and exhaled deeply, his cane resting beside him, his fingers still lightly holding the small wooden cross Ava had carved for him long ago. It now hung from a silver chain around his neck. Ava turned to him. "Elijah, did today feel real to you?" He smiled faintly. It felt like something written in heaven. She smiled and placed her hand over his. "I was scared, standing at the altar." "Why?" he asked. "I kept thinking, this is too beautiful, too kind. What if it disappears?" Elijah turned his face to her. "It won't. Not as long as we keep holding on." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for choosing me," he whispered. "Thank you for finding me when I was lost." Moments later, arriving home, the car pulled up to a quiet, beautiful house nestled behind tall trees and flowers. The pathway was lit with soft golden lights. It was their new home, modern, peaceful, private. Marcus stepped out first and opened the car door. Elijah stepped out slowly, holding Ava's hand. She guided him carefully up the steps. Before she could unlock the front door, Elijah stopped. He tugged gently at her fingers. "Ava," he said. She turned to him. "Yes. There's something I want you to know before we walk in." Her heart skipped. "Okay." He held her hand tighter. "I may not see everything, but I feel everything. If there's ever anything you're holding inside, please don't keep it to yourself. I want all of you, your joy, your silence, your truth." Ava's throat tightened. "Elijah," she whispered, eyes filling with tears. "There's something I've been holding. Something about me. I was waiting for the right time to tell you." He nodded slowly. "Then tell me now." She looked down. "Before I came to that church, before I met you, there's something about my past. And once I say it, it might change everything." Elijah didn't let go. "I love you, Ava," he said. "Whatever you tell me, I'd rather face it with you than live in the dark without you." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She opened the door quietly. They stepped inside. The hallway was warm, the lights dim, the scent of fresh flowers filling the air. Ava took a deep breath. "Elijah," she said, her voice soft but trembling, "I need to tell you about someone I once loved. And someone who hurt me." He listened carefully, gently removing his cane and setting it by the door. He reached for her hand again. "No matter what it is," he whispered, "I won't walk away." She looked into his face, still stunned by how someone who couldn't see her physically could understand her so deeply. She took one more breath and began. The house was quiet. Only the soft ticking of the wall clock filled the living room as Elijah and Ava stood in the hallway, just inside the door. The air felt still. Not tense, not cold, just still. Like the moment right before a storm or a breakthrough. Ava walked slowly to the couch and sat down. Elijah followed, using his cane to guide him, but never letting go of her hand. When they sat, he gently placed the cane beside the coffee table and turned toward her. He didn't speak. He simply waited. Because he knew. Some truths take time to come out. Ava's fingers twisted together in her lap. Her eyes stayed low. Then softly she began. Elijah, before I came to Savannah, before I walked into that church, I was engaged. Elijah's head tilted slightly, but his face remained calm. Go on, he said. His name was Carter. At first, he was everything I thought I needed, charming, confident, successful. He had a way of making you feel seen. But that changed. Ava nodded. Slowly. Quietly. The way he spoke to me became sharp. He decided what I wore, who I could talk to. He told me I was lucky he chose me. She swallowed hard. The first time he pushed me, he apologized with flowers. The second time, he didn't say a word. He just locked the door and left me crying on the floor. Elijah's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He let her continue. I stayed because I was scared. I had no family left. No savings. I thought maybe it was better than being alone. But deep down, I knew it wasn't love. She looked up slowly. Elijah, I'm not telling you this for pity. I'm telling you because I want to start this marriage with nothing hidden. He reached out and gently took her hand. Did you leave him? He asked softly. Yes, she nodded. One night, I packed a small bag, grabbed my ID, and walked out. I stayed in shelters, took cleaning jobs, and kept moving. I never looked back. Elijah's fingers wrapped gently around hers. Ava, what you just told me doesn't make me love you less. Her eyes welled up. He continued, it makes me respect you more. You survived. You walked away. You kept going when others would have given up. But what if he finds me? She whispered. What if he ruins this life we're building? Elijah took a deep breath and said in a firm, steady voice. Then he'll meet a man who's not afraid. A man who'll stand for his wife, no matter what. Ava's lips trembled. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Elijah, burying her face in his chest. He held her tightly, gently resting his chin on her hair. You are not your past, he whispered. You are the gift God gave me in my darkest hour. And I will protect that gift with everything I have. They sat like that for a long while, not as a blind man and a woman with a broken past, but as two souls who had found healing in each other. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Elijah reached for her hand and said softly, Thank you for trusting me with your truth. Ava smiled in the dark. Thank you for not running from it. But what they didn't know was that miles away, someone else had just discovered where Ava was. And he was already planning his next move. The next morning was peaceful. Sunlight slipped softly through the kitchen window. A breeze moved the sheer white curtains. The smell of coffee filled the air. Ava stood barefoot in the kitchen, humming a quiet song as she stirred eggs in a small pan. She wore one of Elijah's oversized shirts, rolled up at the sleeves. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She glanced toward the hallway. Elijah was in his office, taking a call with his legal advisor. Since regaining part of his sight, he had slowly returned to handling some parts of his company, with help. Everything was calm, until the doorbell rang. Ding dong. Ava blinked. She wasn't expecting anyone. She wiped her hands, walked to the front door, and looked at the small screen beside it that showed the front porch camera. And then, her heart stopped. She gasped and stepped back. On the screen stood a man in a sharp gray suit, his beard neatly trimmed, and a cruel smile on his face. Carter. Her old life had found her, and it was standing on her doorstep. Inside moments later, Elijah stepped into the living room. Ava, he called. He heard her voice from the front door. It's him, Elijah. It's Carter. Elijah's body tensed. He reached for his cane and made his way to her side, his hand resting gently on her arm. Stay behind me, he said firmly. She shook her head. No. I won't hide. Not anymore. Elijah took a deep breath and opened the door. There stood Carter, smirking. Well, he said. Isn't this cozy? Elijah stood tall. What do you want? I'm here for her, Carter said, pointing to Ava. She took something from me, and I'm not leaving until I get it back. She owes you nothing, Elijah said. Carter stepped forward. You don't even know what she did. She walked out with more than just clothes. She accessed my files. Took money.
Stole contacts.
You really think she's some angel? Elijah didn't move. I know her. I know her better than you ever did. Carter's face twisted. You're blind, Elijah. You don't know what she really is. I may be blind, Elijah said, but I see with my heart. And my heart tells me you're a liar. Ava stepped forward. I didn't take a thing from you, Carter. I left with a bag and bruises. Carter scoffed. You'll regret lying to me. Elijah stepped between them.
Leave. Now.
Or I'll call the police. Carter leaned in. You think you're powerful, Elijah? Let's see what happens when I take this to court. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Ava closed the door slowly, her hands shaking. Elijah held her shoulders. It's okay. I'm here. But he won't stop, she whispered. You saw the way he looked at me. We'll be ready, Elijah said. You're not alone anymore. 2 days later, the letter came. A thick white envelope with a law firm's name printed across the front. Ava opened it with trembling hands. A lawsuit. Carter was claiming she stole $42,000 from his company account before she left. He wanted a public apology and full repayment. Elijah sat beside her, reading the letter slowly, carefully. It's lies, Ava whispered. I never touched a dollar. Elijah's hand gripped hers. He wants to scare you. But what if the court believes him? She said. What if your name gets dragged through this with me? Elijah took a breath. If standing with you ruins my name, then let it be ruined. I stood alone before. I won't do it again. Tears welled up in Ava's eyes. He's not just fighting for money, she whispered. He wants to punish me for walking away. Then he's picking a fight with both of us, Elijah said. He reached for her hand. I've fought many battles in business, Ava. But this one, he looked straight at her, his eyes more focused than ever before. This one, I'm fighting for love. The morning of the court hearing arrived with heavy skies. Thick clouds covered the sun, and the air felt still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Elijah and Ava sat in the back seat of the car, both dressed simply but neatly. Elijah wore a gray suit and black glasses. Ava wore a soft navy blue dress and held a folded letter in her hand, her own written statement of what really happened the day she left Carter. Neither of them spoke much during the ride. Elijah gently held Ava's hand the entire time, his thumb softly brushing against hers. That was all the comfort she needed. As they pulled up to the courthouse, a few reporters lingered near the steps. One snapped a photo. Another called out Ava's name. But Elijah kept walking, his cane tapping calmly on the ground, Ava right beside him. Inside, the courtroom was bright, quiet, and full of tension. Carter was already there, sitting confidently at the front with 2 suited lawyers beside him. He smiled when he saw Ava. But there was no kindness in it, just pride. Ava took a deep breath. Elijah leaned toward her. Just tell the truth. You don't have to be perfect. Just be honest. She nodded. That's all I have. The hearing begins. All rise, the bailiff called. The judge entered, a sharp, middle-aged woman with a serious but calm face. She sat, looked at the papers in front of her, and nodded. You may begin. Carter's lawyer stood first. He spoke with confidence, presenting a few printed documents and a copy of a video clip. He said Ava had accessed Carter's business files before leaving. He claimed she transferred money to an untraceable account. He said she waited until Carter was asleep, then snuck away. As he spoke, Carter sat tall, watching Ava like a hunter who had already caught his prey. Then the video played. It showed a woman at a desk typing. The clip was dark and blurry. The woman looked like Ava, but her face was never shown clearly. She wore similar clothes and had the same hair length. The lawyer said, "This is Ava Monroe, caught on security camera the night before she disappeared." The judge stared at the screen. "Miss Monroe," she said, "do you have a response?" Ava stood slowly. Her hands shook. but her voice did not.
That's not me, she said.
And I can prove it. She pointed to the screen. Zoom in on the woman's right wrist. The technician did as asked. A small tattoo appeared, a tiny crown. Ava stepped forward and raised her sleeve. No tattoo, she said. The courtroom went still. Whispers started in the back row. The judge nodded slowly, writing something down. Then Elijah stood. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge looked surprised, but allowed it. Elijah stepped forward, cane in hand. I've lived a life where people lie to my face, thinking I'll never see the truth, he said. But I've learned something more powerful than sight, discernment. He paused. I was blind when Ava walked into my life. She had nothing to offer me but honesty and peace. And I knew from that moment she wasn't running from guilt. She was running from pain. The judge listened closely. If this court needs money, Elijah continued, I'll pay it. I have more than enough. But if this court needs truth, then look at the evidence again. And look at this man. He pointed gently toward Carter, who has done everything to scare a woman into silence. Carter scoffed loudly. Is this a courtroom or a love story? The judge silenced him with a raised hand. I've heard enough, she said. The judge reviewed all the papers again in silence. The room was tense. Then she looked up. This court finds no clear evidence that Miss Monroe accessed or stole any money. She turned to Carter. Your claims are unsupported. You provided a video that does not clearly identify the person. And your tone in this courtroom has been inappropriate.
She paused.
This case is dismissed. The gavel hit the desk. Ava gasped and covered her mouth. Elijah reached out, pulled her close, and held her in his arms. They had won. Not just the case, but their dignity. Carter stood quickly, his face red with anger. But this time, no one listened. Even his own lawyers looked away in shame. Ava and Elijah walked out of the courtroom together.
Not fast.
Not running. Just free. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. A small breeze danced across the stairs. Ava looked up at the sky and whispered, Thank you. Elijah turned his head toward her. What did you say? She smiled. Just thank you. To God. For standing with us. Elijah smiled. And he always will. The sunlight outside the courthouse warmed Ava's skin like a gentle hug from heaven. She stood at the top of the steps, holding Elijah's hand tightly. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But she didn't answer any of them.
She didn't have to.
The truth had spoken for her. Elijah leaned close. Let's go home. Ava nodded, wiping the last tear from her cheek. Marcus, Elijah's driver, pulled up quickly, and they both got into the car. As soon as the door closed, the noise faded behind them. Inside the car, everything was calm. But inside their hearts, so much was happening. Ava stared out the window, watching the city pass by. She placed her hand gently over her chest, right where her heart beat strong. Elijah, she whispered. Yes. Why does my chest still feel heavy, even after we won? Elijah smiled faintly. Because truth wins quickly, but healing takes time. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You're right, she said. I'm grateful but tired. He reached for her hand and squeezed gently. Let's take time to rest. We deserve peace now. 1 week later, at home, life slowly returned to normal. Elijah worked a few hours each day from his home office. Ava planted flowers in the garden and baked new recipes she found online. The house was peaceful, but something new had begun to stir. Ava was late. Not just late for lunch or appointments, late in the way that made a woman stop and wonder.
She didn't panic.
Not at first. She waited 3 more days. Then one quiet morning, while Elijah was on a phone call in his office, she went into the bathroom and took a test. Minutes passed.
She stared at the stick.
Then her hand covered her mouth. It was positive. Later that evening, Elijah sat by the window, drinking tea, his cane resting beside him. He was learning to move around the house with more confidence. His partial vision had grown stronger, more shape, more light, more clarity. He heard her soft footsteps approach. Ava, he said gently. I'm here. She sat beside him on the small couch, holding something behind her back. "I want to show you something," she said. He turned toward her. "What is it?" She placed the pregnancy test in his hand. He froze. He felt it, then slowly began to smile. "Ava, I'm pregnant," she whispered. "We're going to have a baby." Tears instantly filled Elijah's eyes. He placed his hand over hers. This is everything I never knew I needed." Ava leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "We've been through fire, but this is life." 9 months later, the delivery room was calm but tense. Ava lay on the bed, breathing through the contractions. Elijah stood beside her, holding her hand tightly. He kissed her forehead, whispering prayers under his breath. "You're doing great," he said. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So was I, that day I walked into the church. But look what God gave me." She smiled weakly through the pain. Then came the final push. A cry filled the room.
Loud.
Strong. Beautiful. The nurse smiled brightly. "It's a girl." Elijah was handed the tiny bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. He held her close, blinking fast as his eyes adjusted to the bright room. "I can see her," he whispered. "I can see her." Ava turned her head slowly, her body weak, but her heart full. "You can?" "She's perfect," Elijah said. "She has your nose." They both laughed, crying together. They named her Grace, because that's what she was. The grace that came after the storm. 1 year later, their home was full of light and laughter. Little Grace crawled fast and bold, already pulling herself up on chairs and chasing butterflies in the garden. Elijah now walked freely through the house. His sight had continued to improve, not fully, but enough to watch his daughter giggle and hold his wife in his arms while seeing her smile clearly. One quiet night, after putting Grace to sleep, Elijah and Ava sat outside on the porch. The stars above were bright. The wind was gentle. Ava leaned on his shoulder and said, "Do you ever wonder how all this happened?" Elijah smiled. "Every day." Then he said quietly, "Remember that day in church? When I sat in the last pew and whispered my heart to God?" Ava nodded. "I didn't know who would answer," he continued, "but I knew God was listening." He looked at her. "And now, I have more than I asked for." Ava kissed his hand. "So do I." Dear viewers, sometimes life takes everything from us, our strength, our voice, even our hope. But never forget this. God hears. In your silence, in your tears, in your quiet whisper. Don't be afraid to tell him your pain, because he answers in ways we never imagine, through people, through peace, through unexpected miracles. Elijah cried alone once, but he didn't stay alone. God heard him. And just like Elijah, God will hear you too. That brings us to the end of this video. If you find this story worth watching, kindly subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.